right, so I'm here with Alec Sailer for the Golf Pro Pod episode 3. Alec, good to see you. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, of course.
Alec, why don't you tell everybody where you're at?
Yeah, so I am currently a golf coach working for Altus Performance, specifically Altus Performance Florida. It's the first time we've opened up something outside of Dallas and in the U.S. For those that don't know, Altus Performance is founded and created by Cameron McCormick. And really what it is it brings together a group of coaches and players who all share the same goal, which is higher performance.
Nice. So you guys are at Orange County National?
Correct. OCN in Orlando.
And how does that work? Do they have other teachers, or is it just you guys?
Yeah, so right now there is the director of instruction. His name is Guillaume Biajoud. He ran our European location out in Normandy, France. So he came over, and along with Cameron, they opened up now Altus Florida. Right now there's 3 of us. There's Guillaume, myself, and another coach.
Nice. And are you guys noticing a difference in markets between here and you said you're in Texas, right?
Huge difference.
A little more saturated here?
Yes, there's a lot more competition, but the difference is really lie in private instruction versus academy and group coaching. So in Dallas, there is no academy.
Right.
Whereas like how you have here, you have IMG, you have Ledbetter, you have IJGA, right? All sort of an academy, more of a full-time program. Whereas in Dallas, it's all like private instruction is it. Right. Each coach will kind of do like his own little group stuff, like how we do. But here it's way more tailored to group coaching, full-time programs, and or price. The price is way different from Dallas to Florida.
As in more expensive here or less expensive?
Oh, way cheaper here. Way cheaper.
And that has to do with saturation. For those of you who don't know golf in Florida, obviously we're in one of the meccas of the country, but there is an oversaturation of golf coaches here. However, the ones that stick out the most and, have the best quality of instruction is the ones who end up doing the best.
They can command a little bit higher price because now they have the backing behind it, but and especially for us with kind of being brand new and not as well known, we've had to obviously change prices as a reflect of that. But
right, but you do have a big name.
Correct.
I mean, Cameron McCormick, for those of you who don't know, that's a pretty big name in the teaching world, especially the PGA. Does he has tour professionals?
Oh, absolutely. He's got. I mean, his biggest one is Jordan Spieth.
Okay.
I mean, he teaches solid amount on the LPGA and the PGA Tour, as well as Korn Ferry, PGA Tour Americas as well. So.
Interesting. So I'm going to switch a little bit here. Less about teaching, but more about the state of the golf industry right now. So I'm noticing a leveling off, actually, in the golf industry.
Okay.
So we were going like this. COVID put us through the roof. I'm noticing in my market, at least, and I'm in Daytona, obviously, that we're leveling off a little bit, and the PGA as a whole as well is now switching to not get as many people in as we can. How do we retain them?
Mm-hmm.
So that does transition a little bit into coaching as well. But how do you think the state of the golf industry is right now, and how does it relate to your job?
It's a great question. The coaching side has always been a little bit different than operationally wise because it operates in a completely different mindset than from operations. But from what I've seen, I haven't necessarily seen the leveling off that you have, just in the sense that golf coaching isn't as predicated on just bringing people in. It's more tailored to creating relationships and providing result. Like you're coming in, it's like going to the doctor. Hey, I'm sick. I need you to help me not be sick. Hey, I can't hit the golf ball straight. You need to help me hit the golf ball straight. And if you can do that for me, I'm going to come back, and through word of mouth, other people will come.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if I've necessarily seen the leveling off, but in terms of the golf industry as a whole, having been in your side of being more operations before coaching, I have seen the post-COVID kind of smoothing out that's starting to take place. And more specifically with that too, being, with COVID, you had this big boom of like, there's nothing else that we can do. Let's go try out golf.
Of course. Yeah.
And then from that now, even with working with the juniors that I work with, golf is now like cool. Whereas back when, you and I growing up in Vegas, when we were playing golf, you and I were probably some of the only people that had golf clubs.
Correct.
And it was especially, you're on the golf team. It's like, the heck? Now, people are playing golf, like, oh, hey, this is something I want to do. You even have, through even seeing these other players in other professional sports kind of popularize the sport, like Stephen Curry, for example, where it's way more cool. I think that side of golf is taking off even more. But I think in terms of just the recreational player, yeah, I could see the leveling off happening. But from the coaching side, there hasn't really been a slowdown.
Well, that's good. That's good because we had a lot of people come in at once during COVID, and they probably played for a year or two now, 3 years, and they're like, all right, I can't break 90. Now they're like, what's the next step? Well, the logical next step is to not keep going out and doing the same thing. It's to go see a teaching professional, see your local PGA professional. However, so from my perspective, what I'm seeing is that the economy has had a massive impact on golf. Everything's more expensive. And I'm not going to specify out which golf course, but at golf courses that I have operated, we have seen upwards of 11 to 16% increase on chemicals. The state of Florida right now, and I believe federally, $1 every year until we're at $15 minimum per hour. So the cost to run a golf course right now is increasing massively. It's increasing by the day. However, we still have our members, and they're conditioned to paying a certain price. Yeah. So what we're now having to do, and at various different golf courses, is jack that rate up. Now, in order to keep people, that's tough. Depends what your market is. So, for instance, my market is, Daytona Beach. You have a lot of fixed income out here, a lot of retirees. So when they're given the choice of, do I want to spend $100 on a lesson, or do I want to go spend $100 on my round of golf, they're going to want to go play that round of golf.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm seeing is the difference and the not so much issue, but why people are deciding to just keep going out and shooting 90 instead of saying, all right, what's the real logical approach to this? Go see Alec.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, right? Of like, especially with the history of what golf was, it was more of like there is that barrier to entry of money.
Correct.
You needed some amount of expendable income to even just go and enjoy the sport, let alone get equipment that is worth anything.
Correct.
But yeah, you bring up a good point saying like, hey, here's the money that I have, whether I have expendable income or not, but here's the money that I have. Here's the money that I'm willing to allocate towards playing golf. What do I want to do? Do I want to go out on the weekend with my friends, grab a couple beers, have fun? Or do I want to get better? Right? And unfortunately, there is a cost to everything. That's just the way the world works,
Of course.
Especially as a coach. I need to make money. At your job, you need to make money. However, you got to be careful because, and I think you also need to figure out what it is that you want. Like if you have no care in the world and you don't mind shooting 90 and you're just there to have fun, by all means, do you have fun, spend your $100 in the pro shop, get a brand new pair of shoes, right? But if you're like, I gotta be careful, I don't want to say most people, but if you're like certain people who are competitive and like, hey, you know what? I am kind of tired of shooting 90. I do want to get a little bit better. I'm tired of Bill beating me every time and his swing looks terrible, right? What can I do? Then that's when coaching can really be of a great service. But more specifically, it's not so much the coaching itself, it's the coach or the instructor that's going to help with you.
Right.
Or help you create a plan of like, hey, I'm shooting 90. I want to shoot 90. Right.
Yeah.
And laying out a very clear and articulated plan of like, hey, here's where you are. Here's what we're going to do. And here's where it should be around a specific time frame.
Right. And so when you're making plans for your students or, however you consider them, your students, do you map it out over a time frame, or is it by lesson basis, or is it, an overall goal oriented? How do we get from, how do we shave 2 strokes around the green? I keep all my stats and I notice I'm losing strokes around the green.
Yeah. I think it really depends on the individual and what they want. So what I mean by that is this. If you got a guy that comes in going, hey, I play on the weekend, I have my group of guys, whether they're retired or still working, here's the amount of time that I can get out to practice, and kind of here's what my goal is. I'm not necessarily looking to get crazy good. I don't want to play on tour. I just want to beat the guys I'm playing with. That plan of attack or how we would go about making changes is going to be vastly different than when I got a 10 to 15-year-old going, hey, my aspiration is to play high level D1 college golf and make it on tour.
Right.
Right. With the guy that just wants to beat his friends and not make a fool of himself, with all the things that he's doing wrong, the goal then becomes, okay, hey, what's one or two things that I can change that'll take care of some of the other stuff that's going to be very low taxing, low barrier to entry, and we're going to see a very predictable change in ball flight like that. Okay? Versus the person who has higher aspirations, it's like, okay, we need to provide an even more in-depth level assessment, getting in more video, getting on TrackMan, getting on force plates, maybe even doing a 3D scan to see, hey, what's going on underneath the hood? How's the equipment performing? What's the current level of the golfer? And then what are the fundamental changes that need to be made now? So that way, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when it comes time to, get your offer letters for college or even try out for mini tours or the PGA Tour, we're in a way better spot because we did all the hard work leading up to it. Right. So it really depends on the individual, and you need a coach, if you're looking for one, that is going to meet you at where you're at and then help take you there, and not just force, hey, I just want to do this. Okay, that's great. Well, I'm going to make you do this.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I think a majority of golfers, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I see. A majority of golfers are the retired, male or female, that play 1 to 2 times a week, are members at a club, shoot between 80 and 90, whether they get a foot wedge in there or not. Absolutely. They're going to, give me there, within a club length, gimmies. What is your advice, based on not seeing their swing, to that mass amount of people to shape strokes? If you had 1 or 2 things that you would say, this is what you need to work on in order to shave strokes and, be the guy who's winning the skins. Yeah. Be the guy who's winning the closest to the pins.
Absolutely. I would say first and foremost, you need to find the middle of the club face, period. Right? You cannot begin to fix or hit straighter shots if you're not hitting out of the middle. The reason for that is this fun little thing called gear effect. There is gear effect on almost every club. Now, with fairway woods and drivers, because the face is more bulged and has a little bit more roll, the discrepancy of the gear effect is more. And also because loft's your friend, the less loft you have, the less of a friend you have. That's why with your wedges, they typically don't go as offline or curve as much.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you want something that's going to be low cost of entry and very not easy to do, but easier to do, it's finding the middle. You can simply take 2 golf tees, put them about an inch, which is about the tip of your finger width or length, on either side of the golf ball, and just try not to hit the tees. And you'll be amazed if you can at least, even if it's thin, if you can at least hit the golf ball in the middle, the amount of curve that you're going to have is drastically reduced. Because
and bring in your dispersion.
Absolutely. Right. Because if you hit it off the toe, instantly so if this is the golf ball and you hit it off the toe, it's going to open up the face, and with an iron, it's going to tend to lay the golf ball to start more right and kind of stay there. The opposite's true. If you hit it off the heel, it's going to tend to close the face. Golf ball's going to start a little bit more left and kind of stay there. Now, when you get to your fairway woods, some hybrids, and drivers, as that face now opens, gear effect takes over and it puts the opposite spin. So face opens, puts left spin, face closes, puts right spin, and that's where you see the big old curves. So if you just hit it out the middle, life gets a lot easier, and then you can work on obviously hitting a little bit more solid, get more compression, whatever.
Right. So your number 1 overall is find the center.
Find the center. Absolutely. You can find the center. You got to think there's a lot of good stuff that has to happen to find the center.
Correct.
Just find the middle, and then obviously too, big one, aim up correctly. I can't tell you, even like tour players that cannot aim up correctly.
Explain what you mean by aim up.
Like, for example, you're on the tee box, you see that there's water left, and you have massive bunkers on the right. And like, I'll use me for example. I like to hit a cut. Okay?
Me too.
I like to hit a cut. So I'm going to aim some amount down the left center of the fairway, start this ball there, and work it back towards the bunkers, working away from the danger zone. If I'm going to do that, I got to be very precise with, hey, I'm going to pick, let's say, this tree out in the distance that lines up with the left center of the fairway. And I'm going to line the club face up first, then my body. You're amazed at how many people go, I want to go right here. Right here being, I'm just going to aim in the middle of the fairway. And they're aimed 30 yards right.
Oh, yeah.
And then here's the cool part. Then they hit it dead straight. They hit it dead straight right, and they go, push that one, blocked it. And I go, no, you actually hit it dead straight, but you were aimed 30 yards right, Mr. Member. Or Mrs. Member, sorry. And they go, what?
Yeah, and that's something actually that I've been going through, not only personally, but with some of the, I guess, people I talk with. Again, I don't teach; I'm operations, but still members still know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But shoulders and feet alignment, I've seen it where people are aimed so far left with their feet, and they're just overcompensating. You're just going to double cross yourself every single time. And I think that's also, I agree with you. That's probably one of the biggest things. And what I tell people is just, so let's say we're aiming, at that tree down the left side, pick something in line with that tree that's a little closer to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to help you out.
It's like lining up a putt, right?
Correct.
If you're aiming at things that are 200, 300, 400 yards away, that's a very, very small target. And if we're off even by a millimeter, well, that could lead to 10 to 30 yards off back where we're at, right? If we're trying to aim our dispersion cone. Versus if we kind of rein in our focus and bring the line closer to us, then at that point you're just lining up a putt, right? The only problem with that one, though, is then you lead into, without going too far in the weeds, you lead into eye dominancy and how that plays, whether you're right eye or left eye, into how that's going to help you line up things. But that's a conversation for another day.
And that's more of an advanced golfer thing too, in my opinion. When you're working every day,
yes and no.
Explain.
Well, you got to think. Okay, like I wear glasses, right? So to some degree, my eyes are not great. So I'm going to view the world a little bit differently than you would. Okay. And again, when it comes to the basic fundamentals of golf, grip, stance, posture, alignment, it takes no athletic ability, and it doesn't take a science degree to figure out how to line up to a golf ball. And in golf, the way that you grip the club, the way that you set up your body, and the way that the position, not only the body lines, but also your alignment as a whole, those are the only things in golf you can control. Once you take the club back and through, whatever happens is going to happen.
Right.
Okay? We can't control weather. We can't control who we play with to some degree. We can't control the conditions of the course. You can, I can't. Right?
Somewhat.
So control what you can control, and alignment's a huge one. Just like I said, if you spent 20 plus years aligning right, and you've hit nothing but dead straight shots, but you think you're lined up straight, you're like, I've been blocking it for the past 20, 30 years.
Right.
And then you got me, who you're going to spend money to, just tell you, well, dude, aim more in the middle and stop aiming right. What are we doing? So when it comes to the eye dominancy, okay, for people that are left eye dominant, like myself, when I'm standing up over the golf ball and I tilt my head to look at the target, it's a lot easier because I can instantly see. Because the way that eye dominancy works, you have one eye that looks straight, one eye is kind of off in Narnia over here. It's the straight eye that pulls it back into place. So if you're right eye dominant, that's why you'll see people when they line up, they'll go, what? Because they're trying to look through this eye. So you need to understand the biases that eye dominancy creates when you're trying to line up. And that's can sound a little like we're getting into the weeds, but it's super easy to understand it. And once you understand it, you start to pick up on bad habits that you've had that'll help you align up more correct.
Now, let me ask you this. So I'm a lefty, but I golf righty. I do all sports righty, but I write with my left hand. Would that be I'm more left eye dominant, more right eye dominant? That has nothing to do with it?
No. That just lends itself more to which side of the body you're going to connect with more. So like you're lefty, but you play golf righty. So to some degree, you have a lot more control of the whole left side of your body. You're more in tune with it. So if I need you to do certain things in your golf swing, as knowing that, hey, you play golf right, but you're left-handed, I'm going to focus more on some of the left parts of it. Like, for example, if I need you to get the face to be more closed, I'm going to focus more on what the left forearm and what the left wrist are doing, maybe not so much the right. Makes sense? But yeah, it has nothing to do with the eye dominancy pieces.
So. Interesting. So for those who don't know, Alec and I went to UNLV together.
Go Rebels.
GM program under quite a few actually really good teachers. So Alec, what made you want to go into teaching rather than operations? Because I know you mentioned you did both, and I'll get into my reasoning after yours.
So I think before we get there, you have to understand that I was destined to be a golfer. Both my parents play golf. Their first date was on a golf course. My dad gave me a golf club, a Fisher-Price plastic golf set at the age of 3. So I was always going to do something in golf. Now, back in the day when I was a kid, I thought that was going to be playing on tour. And to some degree now, being a PGA member, I still can and whatnot, but not in the facet that I originally thought when I was a kid.
Right.
Played competitively from the age of 11 all the way through a bunch of junior tours in Northern California, which is where I'm originally from. And then even when I moved to Vegas, played in high school, did a little dabbling stuff in college as well with PGM program. But coaching didn't really become a goal of mine until after high school. I quit golf for 2 years, just got a little bit burnout.
Right.
Played competitively for, at that point, going on 7-8 years straight. Didn't necessarily get the prospects or the college offers that I was looking for. And I also fell in love with the gym. So I was like, yeah, we're going to kind of pause the golfing aspect. I did a little bit of, we'll call it coaching in high school, just because being one of the better players on the team, some of the other not so good players like, hey, what do you do? You're just telling them what you do to hit good golf shots, right?
Right.
But then I was going to community college. My dad told me about this golf program that UNLV had. And I was like, oh, I'd actually heard about that way back in high school. And I started doing some research and saw, the 3 avenues you could go, whether it be golf operations, teaching, or now executive management. And I was like, man, teaching sounds fun, because the golf swing to some degree always fascinated me. How do you hit this circular object with a square face trying to go forward while aiming to the side? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Massive undertaking. I was like, well, let's try it. Let's see. So finished up at community college, transferred over to UNLV, and then started going through the whole PGA curriculum. And then as soon as they started going into the teaching coaching aspects, my brain was just like, oh yeah, here we go. This is what we need to do. And when it came time to learning anything about a balance sheet, I was like, nah, it's not for me.
It's actually funny because what pretty much all of, I believe it was either level 2? That's mostly to the teaching. I know there's teaching in every component, but level 2 is where I kind of tuned out. And Alec was always, granted, there was only 12 kids in our class. Yeah. I think 12 by the end of it.
I think so, yeah, absolutely.
Alec was the one with his hand up every single time, asking questions, having answers. I'm sitting there going, nope. Yeah, ball flight laws, I understand them, no interest.
But the moment it came into
the second you get into
operations
business,
and merchandising, I was like, nah, I'm all right.
Second you get into business, that's where I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. This clicks. And it's funny that 2 people with the same opportunity, coming out of the same school with the same program, with the same teaching, have very different avenues in the golf industry.
Absolutely.
I think it's extremely interesting. And to be honest, without Alec's side of it and without your side of it, the teaching side, there is not much of a business side. And without the business side, there's not much of the teaching side. And the reason I say that is, so my teachers right now, when they have the student comes in and pays for their lesson. When they're in the golf shop, they're recommending things. Mm-hmm. Hey, I think you should be playing, maybe a true feel, not a pro V. You're not really compressing the ball as much. Your local pro shop has that. That's bringing business to me. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, I just did a fitting with Jason Shacerenko. I sold out that fitting. What I tell them is, you're not going to show up to a roofing job with a hammer and a nail. You're going to have an air gun. So why are you showing up to the golf course with a bubble shaft, a tailor-made bubble shaft from 30 years ago now?
1998? Yeah.
30 years ago now. Why are you going to do that? Yeah. And so they really do go hand in hand, because now I'm pushing the fitting / teaching. Because once they buy the new clubs, and this is an interesting thing that you may not know, or you may, but once you get them into clubs that are fitted for them, they suddenly want to take lessons. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that, because when you have the right tools in your hand and you're seeing the right things happen, you go, well, how can I get better? Well, go see your local PGA professional. Mm-hmm. And that's where you come in. And it's kind of just this synonymous, really, relationship where they kind of need each other. We need to run the facility so you can have a driving range to teach on.
Absolutely.
Grass to hit off.
Absolutely.
Of. And I like having teachers, and I would say borderline need them, because they're feeding revenue straight to the golf course. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting to me, and I still think about it every day, about the 2 avenues. And I know there's an executive management level too. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I'm at too. But executive management and operations are one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're either opening, closing the shop, or you're the guy behind the scenes running the business. Mm-hmm. But that's all kind of one and the same.
Yeah. I think it's cool now too that with, even during the time that we were in school, all the different avenues that you now, I mean, there were a bunch of different pathways you could have gone back then.
Right.
Which was only 5-6 years ago. Whereas now there's even more. So it's really kind of cool. Back to what you're saying now about the golf industry. If you're looking to get into it, there's so many different avenues that you can go down to. Right. And don't just rely yourself going to an actual green grass facility, or like what I've done of trying to be a coach.
Right.
Right. So really cool on that aspect. And I agree, like, the symbiotic relationship that is the teaching pro and the golf operations pro, of how you guys can both help create more value for your golf course, especially if you are the head teaching pro or the guy for instruction at an actual like private course or public course. Yeah, I mean, you're suggesting, hey, we've done all this great work on your swing. These clubs aren't necessarily right for you. go speak to Matt in the golf shop, have him get set up at a fitting, or hey, listen, you're doing this. We need to get more reps on this on the golf course. I need you to be playing at least 2-3 times a week. Go try and figure out one of the best times you can go and
correct,
play.
or come get a membership.
Absolutely.
Get a membership, and then even better, Alec can help you in the gym. That's on property.
There you go.
You want more flexibility. You want to be able to turn. You want to be able to get that shoulder behind the ball. You got to put the work in.
Absolutely.
In the gym too, and that's something that is probably the biggest barrier that I see with my general golfers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say my members in general, but all golfers is. If you want to get better, you got to put the work in, and some of that work is off the golf course and off the range.
100%.
We'll get into how to practice correctly, because I know this is one of your biggest things, and it's one of my biggest things too. But you do need to put in the work in the gym if you want to become more flexible.
Yeah.
Now, transitioning over to how to practice, this is one of my biggest things. If you come in and get 5 large buckets of balls, there is no possible way that you are practicing the right way. Am I wrong? There's 105 balls in each bucket.
Yeah. I think you're on the right track. There is a lot to be said for, just going out and doing something. It's like going to the gym. Doing something is better than doing nothing.
But if you're practicing the wrong things,
correct,
with 500 balls,
and that's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
As long as you're out practicing, like I said, it's better than doing nothing. You're at least trying to do something. However, it's like a double-edged sword. If you're going out and you're ingraining bad movements, you're refining bad technique, and you really don't have a plan or a goal in mind, then you're going to get really good at doing bad things. And that's why golf instructors will always have a job.
Right.
Okay? And now, especially if you add that up over time, because it's usually not just you going out there once a week beating 500 balls. That's not what's going to do it to you. It's going out there once a week, hitting 500 balls, and you've done that for the past 25 years. That's where we've ingrained some really bad habits. And the way to break those bad habits is it's going to take the same amount of time or the same amount of reps on a new program to uningrain the bad program.
That's got to be probably the hardest part, because
100%.
In your job, mine's pretty much black and white. You either made money or you lost money.
Mm-hmm.
But with yours, it's this guy comes to you, you're showing him the right way, not necessarily the right way, because there's not always a right way, but a better way to get the club face square at impact, and he's noticing I'm getting worse.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and that's probably got to be the hardest part for you.
It's such a scary moment when you're pretty confident and going, okay, I see their swing, I hear what the struggles are, I've taken a look at video, I'm lucky enough I have TrackMan, so I can kind of compare on TrackMan with what's going on and go, okay, I'm starting to build this model for where I want to see the swing given X amount of time.
Right.
And now I'm going to go in and what's my lead domino? What's my lowest hanging fruit to make this change happen today? Like, okay, cool. We're going to do this. It could be as simple as like, hey, I just want you to feel the club face closing a little bit more in downswing just for laughs and giggles. Okay. And they try and do it and they hosel rocket this thing right off the side of the driving range. And they look at you like, what? Like, what's going on? Or for other people, let's say they've been going to a coach now. This is lesson, whether you are on a package system or not. Let's say you've gone to this guy 2-3 times and scores have gotten worse. Like, that's a hard conversation. It's not a fun one to have.
Right.
But that's where I think when you have that first initial lesson, which I think is crucial, that first initial interaction with somebody, right? Because first impressions matter. Of you laying out and going, okay, listen, let's say for you, Matt, let's say you struggle with the slice. And you go, hey, man.
Well, you know exactly what I should do.
I know exactly. A little over the top move.
A little over the top, yeah.
But you as the instructor, you as the coach, need to very clearly articulate and show them, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we need to do. And here's what success looks like along this pathway. Right. And you have to sometimes tell them, hey, you're going to hit some terrible shots, but that's okay because you can blame me. I'm the person asking you to do this. So anytime you're going out with your buddy, you hit a bad shot. You go, this Alec guy, man, he's got me all messed up right now. And that's fine. I'll be okay.
But you're reconstructing a swing and you're trying to...
You need to define...
Ingrain things.
You need to define expectations, right? Because if you've been doing something wrong for 10, 15, 20 years, understand that's not going to change in a 1-hour golf lesson once a week or once a month. It's not going to.
Right.
If it does, congratulations, you found lightning in a bottle. Figure out how to patent that and sell it and you'll make a lot of money. Okay? But what you need to understand, and this is the job of the coach, okay, not the instructor, it's the job of the coach, to then go, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the shots that you're going to hit. And here's what success is going to look like on this pathway. Right? And then once you feel comfortable with this, then we're going to go down this hole, and then we're going to do this. It's like, you know, I'd like to use building a house. Okay? You cannot build a house unless you have a very stable foundation. Okay? But it takes a while, and it takes a lot of meticulous planning to make sure the foundation is perfectly level and up to code. But once you get that foundation, cool, it becomes a lot easier to start to build up the walls of this house or whatever building you're building to then see changes take place over time, right? If we have these big leaps in progress shortly, fantastic, that's awesome. But I'm more of a believer of like, hey, let's do the right stuff. Let's make lasting changes. It's like going on a diet. How many people crash diet, lose a bunch of weight, and then they put the weight back on?
Put the weight right back on.
Weight.
Yep.
Whereas people that make lifestyle changes and smaller, less barrier to entry changes that keep the weight off long term.
Right.
Right.
Now, what would you say to somebody who, you know, they've taken 4 or 5 lessons with you, and they're losing, they're placing further back in their men's golf association because they're trying to get better, and because they're trying to do what you and I just talked about. We're trying to redo a foundation here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those people? You know, 4 or 5 lessons in, and their scores are getting worse. Is it something where you just reinforce what you've been saying and say, look, you know, this is going to be longer than a month-long process. We're rebuilding a swing for you. Or is it something where you say, I can show you an easy fix. It'll get you to get your scores to drop a little bit, but again, it's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You know, and is that more based off what the student wants? Because, you know, you might have a guy coming to you for member guest. You know, you've got member guest in a month from now. He wants to drop a couple strokes. You know what I'm saying here?
Yeah, absolutely. What you need to do is that's why, like I said, the first lesson is always important, because you need to kind of understand, hey, where are they at currently?
Right.
If they are competing, what's on the horizon? Like, for example, if I got a guy that I know has a tournament, he's coming to me on a Monday, but he's got a tournament on Saturday. It would be not to our benefit to work on any sort of big swing change. Let's go. What are some small tweaks we can make in the short term? And let's prioritize a little bit more skill development during this week, right? And then when you find out, hey, man, I got like 2 months off from competing. Okay, cool, sweet. Now we can go underneath the hood and actually go ahead about making some actual changes. To answer your question, though, what do I do if I got a guy who's come to me 4 or 5 times and we're still not seeing progress? I then start to ask more questions of like, okay, well, how are you practicing? Are you practicing with feedback? Have you taken video? Are you doing the drills that we've prescribed? Have you asked me questions? Have you reached out? Right? Are you recording any sort of stats? Because stats are huge. Are you recording any sort of stats? Like, what's your quantifiable piece that tells you you're not getting better? If it's just
other than score,
or than just like the golf ball still isn't doing what you're doing.
Right.
And I think kind of where you cover yourself from the coaching side of that is, like I said, you establish exactly what's going to happen as you make changes. And if you don't do that, then you open up the door for a little bit of that combative nature of like, well, what's going on, man? I've already paid you now $400. I've seen you 4 times. I'm still not getting any better. If anything, I'm getting worse. Right. Then that also leads itself to, did you provide the right prescription for the problem? Which, have gotten it wrong before. I'm going to get it wrong again. I'm human. I'm not perfect by any means. Right.
It's just like taking, medicine at the doctor.
Absolutely.
It may not work.
Absolutely. But that's where you also have to have the kind of confidence to, at any point in time, go, hey, listen, this was great, but we're now going to pivot. And that was something that, during my time in Dallas and shadowing some of more of the Altus coaches and even Cameron, of like the confidence of going, hey, we spent half this lesson doing this thing, but it's actually, you know what? I don't like it. It may work, but longer term, I think is going to cause more problems. For you to have the confidence and go, hey, by the way, great job, but we're going to pivot onto something else. It takes a lot of confidence.
That takes some balls.
And it takes some balls. Absolutely. You got to have some confidence to go, hey, what we're doing was not great. I just recognized it. Let's pivot. Let's do something else that's actually a little bit more beneficial. But then you have to be able to explain to the student or the client why it is that we're doing this, right? And I think that's where us as coaches need to make sure that we're always including the person in with what we're thinking. Like, hey, listen, I'm going to do this because I wanted to solve this.
You're going to walk them through your thought process
again
to gain that real comfortability as well as trust.
Absolutely. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. You need to define expectations at every given point in time.
Right.
Because as a coach, it helps you on your end to not have that uncomfortable conversation of, hey, man, I haven't gotten better. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yikes. Yikes. Not a fun one to have.
No, not at all. I mean, it's not a fun conversation to have when they come to me and say, the course is in terrible shape.
Yeah.
Well, it's summer in Florida. Give me 3 months.
We've had a little bit more rain than expected. Or like when I saw this, because I've never been in Florida until moving here. And the only times I have been for Jones Cup in 2019, and then I have had some friends that have gotten married actually up here in Daytona.
Right.
But I've never spent an actual golf season here. And to hear that, for this summer in particular, especially where we're at in Orlando, we actually didn't get enough rain. So the course is actually getting a little bit burnt out because of the type of grass that's on the course. Right. It didn't get enough water. The county isn't going to spend any more money watering because they're kind of banking on a lot of the rainfall, which we didn't get until, the last 2 months?
2 weeks, really. Yeah. 2 weeks for us here. I know you guys got hammered a little harder.
Correct.
Daytona, we have not gotten any significant rain until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Granted, we're watering the heck out of golf courses. Got to keep it green.
But that's leads back to what you're saying, Christian. When you got your bosses come and you go, hey, man, what's going on? We're not making any more money this year compared to last year at this time. It's like, well, there's some other factors at play here.
Right.
It's the same thing in coaching. Dude, I'm not getting any better. What's going on? Well, there's some other factors at play. And that's where you got to do a little bit of soul searching. And at sometimes, unfortunately, it is my fault. It happens. But you also, if you're just real with people, it's like, hey, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
It is what it is. People will respect not being lied to. It's definitely not fun. Luckily, I haven't had to tell someone I made a mistake yet. I've been pretty good about covering myself there. Not to say that it won't happen. Knock on wood.
Now, have you ever had to tell a student that you're not working with them anymore?
No, not yet.
Interesting.
Nah. I mean,
what if they're not putting the work in? So, I used this analogy on my last podcast, and I'm going to use it again, and I'll tell you why. But the reason I don't teach is because, let's just use Mr. Smith as a general.
Absolutely.
Mr. Smith, all right, my name's Matt. Nice to meet you. We're going to help you get better. Do you work a 9 to 5? Yes, sir, I do. All right, do you have any time to practice in between our lessons? Absolutely not. I'm going to play on Saturdays with the boys in my men's golf association. I ain't practicing in between. That's why I'm coming to you. That's a tough conversation. I mean, to me, and again, I don't teach for this reason. I would tell you, go pound sand. Yeah. Respectfully, go pound sand, because my job is to make you better. If you can't do your homework to be better, because I'm not going to make you a great golfer in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. Again, that's lightning in a bottle. Patent it, sell it.
Absolutely.
So do you have those conversations ever? Do you foresee having those conversations, or is it, again, setting expectations?
I would like to hope that in the future, with trying to be, like Cameron and like the other top coaches, that is my goal. I would like to hope that I get to be a little bit more selective on who I choose to coach. But to some degree, I also see what you're describing as a fun challenge. Like, hey, can I help this guy get better, knowing that he's not going to put in the work, he's not going to put in the time, right? I see it as a fun little challenge.
That's how much fun.
Oh, absolutely.
My God,
I love being in the trenches. I love being in the trenches, sweating out there on the driving range, trying to figure out how am I.
I'd rather the trenches though. I got 250 people on both golf courses and I ran out of golf.
Yeah, you bring the golf.
Now I'll run out there and start cleaning carts.
Yeah, no. I would much rather try to figure out how am I going to make this guy or this girl get better, and they're not going to practice. They've been swinging this way for the past 30 plus years. Like, how are we going to do it? It's fun.
That's wild,
right?
But that is wild.
What I would tell the person in that scenario, you said you got to ask questions. You got to ask the right questions. You go, okay, so you're not going to put in the time. You want to get better. Okay. I like to use analogies. I'd probably come up with some sort of analogy of trying to get them to, almost like Inception, the movie. It's trying to get them to understand that mentality isn't right. But then also, too, you then start to figure, okay, well, if you're not going to practice at the golf course, well, how much time do you have at home? Because there's a lot of stuff you can do at home. We call it dry work. Anything you do without actually hitting a golf ball or even a golf club. Right? There's a lot of stuff you can do with a decent-sized mirror. Right. So then it's like, okay, well, can you do this stuff? So you've got a plan B. Yeah, absolutely. If plan A is practicing X, Y, and Z on the range, and that's not feasible, then can you do the stuff at home? And at the end, you still no. Then you go, okay, well, let me be completely upfront with you and be fully transparent. You want to get better, and you're not going to practice. Okay, fine. Understand that we got probably 6 years of you coming and practicing with me once or twice a week, paying me money, and we may see progress.
Right.
We may see progress. That, or we get incredibly lucky with the thing that I tell you to do cures, like you said, lightning in the bottle, cures everything, here we go.
So I think that, what I'm hearing, and I think what's most important here is that if you are going to take lessons with the intention of getting better, there is homework to be done.
Yeah. I think,
and again, laying out the expectation that this is what you have to do to get done, but putting people on a program with a very direct way of saying, this needs to be done this way for you to improve. And it's not necessarily saying their swing's bad.
No.
It's just saying, let's work with what you have to get you to square up that face of impact.
Absolutely. It's more or less like, hey, defining what the expectations look like, and then my industry or the coaches need to tell you, like, hey, Matt, you came there for a lesson. Hey, listen, here's what we need to do. Here's what success looks like along this pathway, and we need to help you understand that success isn't linear. There's going to be up and downs. We want the trend to be linear, but there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be days where we're like, oh my gosh, we're cured. And then there's going to be days where we're like, oh my Lord, why did I pick up a golf club today? I need to quit. This is terrible. Right? It's going to happen. That's golf. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it to a high level. They're not.
Correct.
Okay? So you need to understand, hey, listen, and this is why golf's great, because there's so many parallels to life. And especially with trying to get better, you're going to get out of your lessons what you put in. Assuming you found a coach that is going to meet you where you're at and provide you with the right information, which that's a completely different podcast. But assuming you found that, you're going to get out of it what you put in. So just like going to the gym, if you keep thinking about working out, you ain't going to lose any weight or get any bigger. You actually have to go and work out.
And watching YouTube videos of working out is not going to get you bigger.
Working out once a day, it's better than nothing. Okay, working out twice a day, well, it's better than 1. 3 is better than 2, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So you can't expect that me as the coach is going to wave my little magic wand and cure all your ailments. It doesn't work that way. Right. I'm going to do everything in my power to move mountains for you to get better. I'll answer any questions. You can ask as many as you want. Criticize everything we're doing. I don't care. I love it. Bring it on. Okay? But the same expectation for you would be, hey, you're going to put in the work. Right? And if because of things in life you don't have the time, well, then that's my job to help you kind of remove excuses.
Right.
Accountability. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So we're going to shift a little bit here. I don't know if you saw, but they have something called the Creator Classic now.
I did. Yes.
So they had the top, it was 10 or 12. You had Good, Fat Perez, that Gabby.
Bob Does Sports.
Gabby girl, whatever, all those Paige, whatever her name is. What kind of impact on the golf industry do you see as that happening?
Massive.
It's huge.
Massive. You got to think, especially if you think long term, how is golf going to grow? Well, you got to get the youth involved. I can't tell you how many times where even when I was in Dallas and even now, you got these kids talking about good, or you got them talking about Bob Does Sports or Fat. They're talking about all of it. They're watching more of these guys than they actually are watching the PGA Tour.
Correct.
So I think it's massive. It has huge implications. And from what I've seen, it's great. It's very entertaining, and it's doing what should have probably happened when you and I were kids, is associating golf with fun. And not this like stuffy, privileged thing that it was for forever.
Correct.
Realistically. So I think it's huge, man. And the fact that even the PGA Tour and the powers that be are recognizing this as a potential growth aspect, I think is awesome.
It's a massive revenue outlet.
Yeah.
YouTube is going to pay out upwards of $70 billion.
Really?
Upwards of $70 billion forecasted in the next 5 years to creators.
Wow.
Once you're monetized.
Yeah,
Once you're monetized, you're going to be paid out through ads.
$70 billion.
Correct. So I think the PGA Tour made a very smart move.
Absolutely.
Very, very smart move. And I don't know if you saw, but Bryson and Brooksy going to be playing Rory and Scheffler.
Yep.
Amazing. You see Bryson's breaking 50.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
It has more views in the golf industry than anyone in a 24-hour period. If you look at the statistics, 24 hours from when it is posted. Better than the one with the good guy who had the driver. He had the hole-in-one on the par 4. Mm-hmm. Better than all of those. Bryson breaking 50. Now, that type of content is growing the game so much more, because I will tell you, I will say at least 50% of the people that walk in my golf shop, if they're not wearing a brand name, Callaway, Titleist, TaylorMade, any of those, it's a good hat or a Bob Does Sports hat.
100%, man.
That to me is mind blowing. That such a small percentage of people that, quite frankly, suck at golf. Some of them are really bad. Like Bob Does Sports had a hole-in-one on camera. Great, awesome, fantastic. He's not a good golfer. Dave Portnoy is not a good golfer. Riggs is not a good golfer. However, they're driving revenue for a business that keeps me employed.
Yeah. Well, you got to think too, right? You got a massive amount of the golfing population as a whole can't break 90. Right. So then you see some of these guys who are really good on camera,
like Trent.
Yeah, they're getting on camera with their golf swings, hitting balls. It's easier to resonate with that than watching Rory pound a drive 340 yards up the middle on the world's tightest fairway.
Right.
Most people can't do that.
Right. So I think that they're relating more to this. They're saying, oh, that guy shanked the ball.
And you got to think, right? And I think this is something that the PGA Tour is now starting to understand is all of this stuff, the Breaking 50, the Creator Classic, whatever, it's entertaining.
Correct.
People want to watch, like, we watch football because it's entertaining. It's great watching dudes come head-to-head and smack each other or make an impossible catch. Like, that's the stuff that gets you to jump out of your seat. It's entertaining. For the longest time, golf on TV hasn't necessarily been as entertaining unless you already knew what was going on. Right. Like, for example, could you imagine, right? Like even my friends now getting into 30 are all playing golf. They cannot shut up about it. They keep asking, oh, help me out, do this, da, da, da. And I love it. I wish they would have done it when I was still living in Vegas, but
right.
I digress. But now, like, imagine going back 10 years ago and showing them a PGA Tour event.
Oh, they'd be so bored out of their mind.
Like, what are we doing? Whereas now, like, I even got my friends telling me about, oh, did you see, like, Bryson's Breaking 50 thing? Or did you see this thing that this guy did on YouTube? I'm like, yeah, of course I did because I'm a sicko and I love golf. But they're talking about that stuff now and they're not watching golf on TV.
Correct. And, I think that that's the transition that LIV is going to be getting on board soon. They've already made it a little more fun atmosphere. Yeah. But I think the PGA Tour jumped ahead massively with this thing at East Lake. Massively. Mm-hmm. And this is the only sport to have this happen where amateurs are outshining professional athletes. You don't see people on TikTok, playing football at an amateur level and people watching it. You don't. But the reason you see it in golf is because you can have fun on the golf course and still do this. You can have 5 to 10 beers. In states that are legal, you can smoke on the golf course. Yes. It's the only sport that allows you to still do recreational things that aren't involved directly with that sport.
And I think, double-clicking on what you said there, it's really the only sport that almost everybody can do. Not everybody can play football to a high level. Not everyone's going to be playing in the NBA. We can all go play recreationally with our friends on a weekend on a basketball court or go throw the ball around.
Right.
But also think, how many people do you need to actually get a baseball game together? Right? Whereas golf, you just need yourself, a set of clubs, and a golf course.
I think the athleticism part is huge, too. I mean, you look at John Daly. I mean, 20 Diet Cokes and 5 packs of cigarettes, and he's 6 under. Baseball, maybe your Bartolo Colon's a little heavier, but you have to be a specimen in these other sports.
Absolutely.
You don't necessarily. Fat Perez is a great example. He's not the skinniest guy. He doesn't get through the ball all the way, but he sure does square it up at the impact.
All matters.
I just think it's very interesting how the golf industry has been able to really take the amateurs and monetize it. And not only monetize it, use it as a marketing strategy to now bring more people than ever into the golf industry. And my job is to now retain them. Mm-hmm. And your job is to teach them. And we got to work together to make sure that this stays afloat. And I don't see the golf industry going anywhere anytime soon.
No, not at all.
We are in a leveling off period, but I do see it. We're going to hit a boom again, and it's starting to because of this social media golfers.
Well, you got more and more kids. I teach a handful of juniors that play a bunch of different sports, and they're starting to want to play golf even younger. They want to play it more because when they're going home, they're going onto YouTube and they're watching, the good guys or whatnot, and they're associating it with fun, right? First and foremost, especially as kids, they're associating it with fun. This is something fun to do. And then should they get the want to play a little bit more, that's when they're going to come see you. If they want to play a little bit more at a higher level, that's when they come see me or other coaches. Right. So, I do see the leveling off to some degree, but I think with the advent of YouTube golf and the fact that now you got like PGA Tour taking a little bit more of an incentive and a more curious look into it, Right. Very intrigued to see where we go from here post the golden era of golf and or this post-COVID boom where everybody who was anybody was like, oh, this is the only thing we can do. Why not?
Right.
Right.
Now, Alec, why don't you let them know and explain to us, A, how they can get in touch with you, B, what type of packages / lessons programs you offer, and C, what is the best method of reaching their goals with you?
Yeah. So the simplest way, you can always go to altusperformanceflorida.com. You'll see my face and the other coaches on there. You can request lessons directly from there. You can also shoot me an email. Email is alec@altusperformance.com. Happy to answer any questions that you have. In terms of packages, we don't necessarily operate on packages. It's more of just based on the hour. And if you're intrigued, I can let you know what the hourly rate is. And in terms of what they can expect from me, I'm not going to force any of my personal preferences or biases on you. I'm here just to help you get better. Like if you come to me and your goal is to get rid of the slice you've had forever long, then we're going to work only on how to get that out. I'm not going to try and force you anything that you can't physically do or want to do.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, Alec's a good buddy of mine, and I do appreciate him coming out. He's back in Florida, or in Florida now, which is super exciting to me. Last question, how many strokes are you giving me?
I think the question is, how many strokes you give me, dude? I don't play golf as much anymore.
That's the one thing they don't tell you about the golf industry. We don't get to play a lot of golf.
I mean, I did play pretty well the last time I played, but because you are a pro, you get 0.
Yeah.
You get 0, and I get 0 too.
So tough.
I'll tell you what, you can play one tee up forward than the tips. How about that?
That doesn't help at all.
No, that's all I can give you.
Actually, the landing zones on my courses are better from further back, so I'll actually play further back. No, I can spray it a little more. Brother,
all right, dude.
It was great having you on. Man. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, the Golf Pro Pod. There's a bunch more of this coming. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.
Thank you.